Welcome back to The Takeout. Here is a look at what we, and now you, are watching this evening. White House says President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will likely, that's a quote, speak this week as trade tensions momentarily de-escalated, well, have re-intensified. Both countries accusing each other of violating trade understandings, and the State Department says it will start revoking visas for Chinese students. The defamation trial of MyPillow CEO and Trump supporter Mike Lindell began in Colorado today. A former Dominion Voting Systems executive is suing Lindell over claims that he accused him, that is the Dominion Systems executive, of rigging the 2020 election. Lindell is expected to testify. That will be worth watching. And a former MAGA loyalist is basically has rejected, a pardon for her role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Her name, Pamela Hemphill. She was convicted of a misdemeanor for entering a restricted area, that being the United States Capitol. She was one of more than 1,500 people President Trump pardoned, and she told CBS News those pardons were inappropriate and contribute to Trump's attempt to have a whole narrative about January 6th and the prosecution thereof under the brand weaponization. I want to bring in our family table discussion, Wall Street Journal reporter Meridith McGraw, NOTUS, remember that's News of the U.S. reporter Jasmine Wright, and my colleague Scott MacFarlane. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to you, too, to the new Takeout set.
Yes, we love it.
Glad to have you here. Scott, I want to start with you. Talk to us about Pamela Hemphill.
One of a kind. In
Definitely.
so many ways. There are 1,500 plus people who got pardons or commutations for their roles in the U.S. Capitol insurrection. And then there's just one who said, no, thank you, send it back. Pamela Hemphill of Idaho did some time in prison, a few months. She has 3 years probation for her misdemeanor case. She went to Senator James Risch, the junior senator from Idaho, and said, what can I do to reject this pardon? So Senator Risch went up to the U.S. pardon attorney and asked him, what can somebody do in this rare American moment where they don't want a pardon? And the U.S. pardon attorney has notified Pamela Hemphill, your pardon is off the books. We'll take the certificate and we will rip it up. And I'll tell you, the thing she said that resonated most, Major, she says, I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I wouldn't be right with God if I accepted a pardon for something we all clearly did.
And she now regrets. She now sees her activism, her antagonism about the 2020 election as misplaced.
And in the process, she gets any number of venomous posts on social media from those who are supportive of the January 6th defendants. She recognizes that. She embraces it to a degree. She's gone on podcasts to debate Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boy leader from January 6th. But her case just stands alone. We couldn't find somebody else who went through great stress and great pains to reject a pardon from the President of the United States, though it's worth noting she wasn't still incarcerated. The hundreds who were freed
right.
likely aren't sending that thing back.
6 were a little lower.
An important footnote, Meredith, I want to talk to you about something that we opened the show talking about. The tariff wheel continued to spin. Friday, 50% tariff, steel and aluminum. Now, a likely designation that there's going to be a conversation between President Trump and President Xi of China, not on the schedule yet, at least not formally. The Chinese are saying nothing to confirm this. It seems like that was meant by the White House to send a signal to the markets and the economy broadly. We're still working on this. Things might turn.
Well, there's been a lot of back and forth. And like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty about whether or not this call will actually happen this week. I've been told that it is going to happen. We still don't have a date. We still don't know when. And of course, we've heard President Trump time and time again say he's talking to the Chinese. You know, the door is open. There are conversations happening. But what we have seen in the weeks since that Geneva summit, where Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, met with Chinese counterparts, a delegation in Switzerland. And
they reached a rough understanding, nothing on paper. They kept saying it wasn't papered. It's just an understanding.
An understanding, you know, the tariffs were rolled back. But now we're at a place where it really seems the administration is ratcheting up pressure. Trump has made no secret of his frustrations with the Chinese, and we've seen how Secretary of State Marco Rubio revoking Chinese student visas. They're trying to put the pressure here. The question now, I think, is, if they're going to actually have a conversation, if they can make a deal, and how this can, change the market uncertainties over what's going to happen with trade with China.
Jasmine, your take.
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at the larger moment we're at with tariffs, everything is so uncertain, to Meredith's point. Not just because the courts basically stopped the tariffs and then put them back, and now we're waiting to see what happens next. Not just because Donald Trump continues to change his mind. Just on Friday, he moved the tariffs on steel from 25% to 50%, but just generally because of all of the amount of work they have to do to get to a deal on tariffs with all of these countries, not just China. They're just working on obviously, we know that they announced a framework with India, but those are mostly top lines again. They announced a framework with India. Those are top lines. They announced a deal with the UK. Those are top lines. Obviously, they're going back and forth with the EU. So there's so many different question marks when it comes to countries that are so central to our tariff policies that this White House just doesn't yet have an answer for, because they don't have enough time in the 90 days that they set forth, which is why they're moving to a larger framework for multiple of the countries that maybe are a little bit less important than, say, the UK.
Shorthand,
EU.
what you were referring to, top lines are up here, the bottom line where you sign and make it real way down there.
And where the numbers are, and what the non-tariff barriers are, and all those kinds of things that are very important to Trump, as he says, but obviously take a long time, sometimes with those trade representatives, months and months, if not years. In normal cases.
I want to play for everyone Rand Paul, who is disputing the underlying math of the House budget bill that's now pending in the Senate. Let's listen.
The math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. I think they're asking for too much money. And in the end, the way you add it up to see if it actually is going to save money or add money is how much debt are they going to borrow? $5 trillion over 2 years. It's an enormous amount.
30 seconds, Scott MacFarlane. You're familiar on your travels on Capitol Hill with Rand Paul. Dean Phillips describes himself as a gadfly. Rand Paul's kind of a gadfly in the budget space, meaning he speaks for himself. He's not really a lever of a lot of other Senate Republicans. Evaluate what you just heard.
The debt ceiling is still hanging out there. That seems to be the poison pill.
And it's in the bill.
He's not going to support it when the debt ceiling is lifted. If they don't raise the debt ceiling, we got to have a whole different conversation about a whole different problem. So they got to figure that out. If they lose him on the debt ceiling, they're going to endanger the bill or the debt ceiling, the latter of which could be catastrophic.
Meredith, 30 seconds on Rand Paul and where things are heading?
I think Senator Thune is in a very tricky spot. He can only afford to lose, 3 Republican senators. We've already heard from Rand Paul. We know that Senator Ron Johnson and other senators have very different ideas of what should happen with this big, beautiful bill.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I mean, I think that both Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ron Johnson, Tom Tillis, there's a fourth that I can't remember, they're kind of all in a cabal saying that they're ready to sink this bill unless there are more savings. But it's really Rand Paul out on his own that is a firm no on the debt ceiling. I'd be interested to see where the other 3, including that one gentleman who I can't remember their name, where the other 3 are, and whether or not they're as hard of nose as Rand Paul.
Senate Republican yet to be named on this very program by Jasmine Wright. Dude, make sure you tune in for that next episode. Meridith McGraw, Jasmine Wright, Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much.